Hey, howdy everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to my second channel. Today is my second movie review. Everything else has been like Severance and my Garfield reaction. This is my second actual movie review for a movie that's in theaters. I did a review on Warfare. Go watch that if you are interested in that movie or interested in my thoughts on it or whatever. But today I'm talking about the final Mission Impossible movie. At least for now, until they decide to drag Tom Cruise out in his 80s and make another one inevitably. He'll probably just want to do it anyway because he enjoys making these movies, I suppose. But for now, this is the final Mission Impossible movie titled The Final Reckoning. One thing you may notice that my background is different. These are all things that are taken from my grandma's house because she has moved into an unfortunate, not unfortunate situation, but she's kind of losing it a bit. She's 96. She moved into an assisted living home and she's now living there. So now we got to sell her house, which her husband built in the 50s and it's been like a family heirloom forever. Like we had so many family parties there and now we got to sell the house. And it's a little bit sad. So we've been kind of going to visit her and going to her house. And these are just some things that I liked that I picked up from her house that I've noticed in her house since I was a wee lad. And now I can have them and they are my things now. So it's kind of like remembering my grandma kind of thing. All right. I mean, she's not dead yet, but she will be soon. She's 96. All right. Anyway, back to Mission Impossible. So that's what all that stuff up there is. This movie is a bit interesting because I think it's a good movie, but it has one glaring flaw, and that is it's trying too hard to be like a bookend to the series of movies that we've had so far. It's trying too hard to be the ending, to be the finale. It's trying to have like the highest stakes and the most tie-ins without like any meaningful tie-ins. And I think that kind of stuff brings the movie down. The actual plot itself is pretty good. It's pretty interesting. There's some good stuff that happens in there. There's some great action set pieces. There's some pretty solid, amazing scenes. But there's a lot of filler and a lot of padded stuff that kind of brings it down a bit. I still think Fallout is my favorite of the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movies. And this one is probably not going to be up there with the top ones, but it's not terrible. Like none of the Mission Impossible movies are terrible, but this one is just not great. And for like a final movie, it's slightly disappointing, but it's still a fun time. It's still a good watch. I'm going to just talk about some brief overall things, like kind of what the general plot is. And then I'll get into like a little bit of some spoiler stuff at the end, so I'll warn you when we get there. But let's kind of talk about what the setup is. So it picks up pretty much right where Dead Reckoning leaves off, which I don't know if they're going to keep calling it Dead Reckoning Part 1 or if they're going to just cut off the Part 1 because it's Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning. I don't know. Anyway, it picks up where that leaves off. So if you've seen that movie and you know how that goes, then you'll know where this movie's going to go. If you have not seen that movie and you don't know how that goes, this movie is going to tell you a lot what happened and where the movie is going. And that is, I think, the biggest flaw of the movie. The entire first hour of this almost 3-hour film is setup. It is so much setup. It is so much exposition. It is just info dumping constantly. And none of it is particularly overly confusing, but it's just a lot of information. And you're just trying to like connect the dots mentally with like, how does this fit in with like, oh yeah, this is that. Oh, okay. Yeah, I got it. It's just a lot of information right off the bat, right at the beginning. And I think that's where it tries to be a finale and it tries to kind of cap off the series. And it doesn't really do the best job just because it does that so much. Like there's a ton of flashbacks to the other movies. There's some characters, not going to spoil. I mean, it's not a huge spoiler. There's some characters from other movies, like some of the older ones that come back for this one. There's like a ton of like, remember this scene? Now here's how that applies now. And remember when this happened 30 years ago? Now here we are now, and here's how it affects what's going on now. And there's a lot of that, and a lot of it felt kind of unnecessary. There was one big plot point that I feel was a pretty good tie-in, and it was a minor thing. It's like a minor character from I think the first movie who comes back and he's like, yeah, because of what happened in the first movie, this happened, and so here I am now, and like that kind of stuff. But without getting into spoilers, like a lot of it does feel kind of unnecessary and kind of long. and just dragged out in a weird way, and I wasn't the biggest fan of it. Once the movie actually starts to get going, it's not bad. It's a pretty good time. There's still some unnecessary stuff. There's still some characters that I feel could have been cut. There's still some scenes that dragged out for too long. But overall, I think it was pretty good. There's one sequence in particular, which was the best sequence of the entire movie. And it's, I mean, if you know how Dead Reckoning goes, then this sequence won't be a surprise to you. But it's when Tom Cruise has to go to the submarine to get the source code for the AI. So that was a thing that was set up in Dead Reckoning, where, you know, the beginning of Dead Reckoning, the submarine sinks. They have the little cruciform key that they connect, and they unlock the thing in the submarine. So Tom Cruise has to take that key down into the sub and get the source code for the AI and make it out. That sequence is incredible. It is the best scene in the movie. It is shot so well. The colors and lighting are so cool and interesting, and just the way that plays out is so cool. And that scene is like 10 minutes long, and it doesn't feel super long. There's only one line of dialogue that Tom Cruise says. It's kind of unnecessary, but there's like one thing. He says 2 single words in a whole 10-minute sequence, and they don't cut away, and they don't have any weird exposition, and it's just like, it lets you enjoy this sequence of him trying to get to the submarine, and it's great. That is the best scene in the movie, and it's amazing. I loved it. That was incredible. A lot of the other stuff, though, I think it was kind of hampered by how much they tried to tie in with the other movies and how much they tried to jump between things. There were a lot of very quick scenes. Like, scenes would happen very quickly. They would resolve themselves very quickly, or there would be 2 or 3 scenes happening at once, and we're constantly jumping between the 2 or 3 scenes, and you'll have like 20 seconds in this scene, and then 30 seconds in this scene, and then maybe just over a minute in this scene, and then it jumps over back to here, back to the first scene, and there's a lot of that kind of stuff happening as well, and that kind of took me out of it a bit. Again, like, the movie's good, but a lot of this stuff kind of brings it down, even though the overarching, like, big main plot is pretty solid. There's also a lot of, like, things where there's, like, a butterfly effect things, where we have to do this because otherwise this will happen, but that won't happen unless this happens, but that won't happen unless this other thing maybe happens, which we don't know if that'll happen, but it's Ethan Hunt, so of course it'll happen. So it's a lot of that as well, where they're relying on a lot of all of these things kind of coming together in the end and everything lining up perfectly, which happens in a lot of Mission Impossible movies. And there's a lot of things that don't go according to plan, but somehow it all works out in the end. And that's just a staple with these movies. These movies they're not very, like, realistic, I guess, in terms of things happening and things going wrong. But, you know, it's also realistic that things go right. So take that as you will. Some people may like it. Some people may not. Up to you. If you like these kinds of movies where the good guys always win, then there you go. That's what this is. No big surprise there. There are some pretty good character moments, especially, I think, some in the beginning, and then some towards the end that I think are really solid. But again, there's a lot of exposition, a lot of just giving people information. This kind of does the opposite of my favorite show of all time, Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul will show you something happening and then leave you to put the pieces together and kind of figure out what's going on, how is this playing out, and like kind of like leave you to retroactively figure out how it's coming together. And so you're also like playing a mind game where you're trying to figure out, okay, what's happening? What is that? Oh, I think, what if that? Oh, it is. And like that kind of thing. You're left with these cool revelations when you figure out like how the plot is unraveling and how whatever plan is happening is unveiling. With this, they sit there and they explain to you the entire plan for like 5 minutes straight of just talking, explaining how it's all going to go down with flash forwards of like, here's this person doing this. And like, maybe it turns out differently in the end, but like they're going step by step through every single thing, exactly how it all has to go and how it has to play out. And then it all plays out that way for the most part. And that's kind of a thing with these movies where it's kind of fun, where you get to see the plan set up and then how it's executed. And it's not the worst thing in the world, but it does get a little bit taxing with this movie just because there's so much of it, especially with the entire first hour being set up. I do think once things start going in the second and into that third hour, I think it's a lot more interesting, but it is a little rough. All right, I'm going to get into some minor spoilers here, so click away. Overall, I think the movie's a good time, but it's got some shortcomings. Some minor spoilers about just some plot things and how it ends and some of that stuff, which I guess aren't minor spoilers, but I'm not going to go into like a super in-depth analysis. I'm just going to talk about some things that I wanted to talk about. First thing, Tremel Tillman, I think that's how you say his name, right? Milchick. Milchick from Severance is in here. And I saw him in the trailer, and I was so excited to see him in this movie because he's the best part of Severance. And coming into this, I was super excited to see how he would perform in a Mission Impossible movie. And he has maybe 10 minutes of screen time in a 3-hour movie. And it was a little bit disappointing, and his character didn't really feel like much of anything. So that left me wanting more. His character was just like a military general, and he felt like he could have been played by anybody. He didn't really have any of his Milchick charm or his Milchickisms or like anything that any other actor couldn't have pulled off. And so that was a little bit disappointing because I was mainly looking forward to seeing his character in this movie. Also, he doesn't show up until like an hour and a half into the movie, and then he's there for like 10 minutes and then like 30 seconds at the end of the movie, and that's it. So that was a little disappointing. Again, like I said, the sequence where he goes to the submarine and it gets the source code is incredible. The way that they filmed that with him going down, and then he's got like the flares shooting off of him as he's heading down, and you get like the big wide shots of him like descending. Oh, it's so good. And then he gets into the ship and it starts rolling over, and and the camera's like panning it with like the water going off. It's shot so well. Then he gets the source code and he has to get out, but he realizes he can't get out the way he came in because it's starting to fill up with water, and that would take too long. So he has to cut open his suit and get out and like push his breathing pack through the torpedo hole to get out. Oh man, it's so tense and it's done so well, and it takes its time in a way that doesn't feel slow. It shows you like what's happening kind of like in real time, I guess, and it's super interesting and engaging throughout the entire sequence, and that was the best part of the movie. I loved that so much. You got to suspend a little bit of disbelief because he very rapidly swims to the surface in just his underwear, and he's in these freezing ice cold waters, and he gets the bends and freezes up, and then we are meant to believe that Grace finds him immediately and is able to resuscitate him and bring him back to life. And I think he would have died. I don't know. I don't even know if Tom Cruise could survive that, but apparently Ethan Hunt can and will and does survive, and he's just fine. And then he proceeds to immediately, not a half hour later, climb his way onto an airplane, and then get onto another airplane, and then beat Gabriel and kill him, which was brutal, by the way. Gabriel's death was oh my goodness, that was kind of intense. I saw this in a packed IMAX theater, and everyone kind of cringed when he was like gloating that he had a parachute, and then his face, his like whole head smacked into the rudder of the plane and just like split his head in half for a split second. You're like, oh my goodness. Oh, that was brutal. And then just like the ending, like I get that they kind of want to leave it open-ended for like the IMF could continue one day or something like that, or we could have spin-off movies or whatever. I kind of would have liked it if Tom Cruise died. Not himself, but Ethan Hunt. I kind of would have liked it if Ethan Hunt died. I get that Tom Cruise wants to leave it open because he may want to make more movies in the future one day, but I wanted to die, and they killed off Luther in this movie, which I think it was a noble death for him. I also thought Simon Pegg's character died. I thought Benji died. I thought Benji died when they were in the bunker, and he was defusing the AI because they had to trap the AI to get into the little data disk or whatever. Like, I thought he died, and he should have died too. And at the end, he's just fine. Like, they could have at least killed off Benji. At least. I get they killed off Luther. They could have at least killed off Benji too. He was prime, in a perfect spot to die. He would have gone out in such a heroic way, but he doesn't. Whatever. Okay, fine. I think, like I said, I think the overall plot of the movie is interesting. The AI wants to take over all the world's nukes so it can, again, like launch the nukes, destroy the world, and that it can live, but it needs a safe place to be. So it has to be in the bunker, but it can't get in the bunker until Ethan lets it in the bunker, but it can't get in Ethan can't let it in the bunker until like, so it's the snowball effect of like that kind of thing where like this can't happen until this happens, and that sort of thing. But I think the ending sequence in particular was really well done. The sequence where everything was super tense. Ethan's trying to get the pill into the whatever it's called, the little thing with the source code, and then it all happens like a millisecond. So like he gets it in, and then Grace cuts the wire, and then the AI comes in and she rips it out just in time. Like that scene was super intense, and it was really, really well done. I really liked that. But there was just a lot of like minor nitpicks I have with like a lot of exposition before all that. They did not need to explain so much in the first hour of this movie. I think that would have made it a lot better. Again, it's kind of accessible if this is your first Mission Impossible movie, but again, if you are coming into this movie and you have not seen at least Dead Reckoning, why? Why are you going into the final movie in a franchise, assumedly, at least for now, and expecting to understand it if you haven't seen the other ones? Why? Why did they make it for people? Why did they make it to accommodate people like that? This is like if in John Wick 4, or no, in 2 to 3 actually, when at the end of 2, when like the thing, not going to spoil it, but at the end of 2, when like the thing happens at the end of 2 and then it goes into 3, this is like if at the beginning of John Wick 3, if they had like a half hour of explaining like everybody talking about like what's going on with John Wick, and then we got into like John Wick 3 was so impactful because it went right into the action. It was like immediately after 2 left off, immediately after that picked up. And this is kind of like if they slowed everything down and explained a million bajillion things and tried to make some weird tie-ins and things that didn't make sense. Like, oh, the Russians have another key. Oh, that doesn't matter at all after 5 minutes. Like just weird random things like that where it's just, I don't know. It's just a little weird and it's a little frustrating, and it's not one of the best in the franchise, but I think it's not terrible either, and it's still a good watch. It's still entertaining, if nothing else. Just for that submarine sequence, I would watch it again. But man, it's still a good movie. It's still a good movie. And I give it like a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10. That's about how I'd rank it. It's not bad, but it's not among the best, and it's definitely not as good as my favorite, which is Fallout. But I'm hoping that they release a 4K Blu-ray box set of the entire series so I can throw that up there with my Blu-ray collection. Cool. All right, well, those are my thoughts on this movie. Let me know, have you guys seen it? What did you think about it? Did you like it? Did you think the submarine sequence was as good as I did? I actually haven't looked up any other reviews of what other people thought of this movie. I've seen some YouTube thumbnail titles or whatever saying that it wasn't amazing, but which I agree with, but I don't know specifics about what people thought, which is kind of fun because I usually go into a movie and I know a bunch of stuff about like how the movie is, at least. I don't know spoilers, but usually before I go see a movie, I look up reviews just to kind of get an idea of like the general consensus. And this one I didn't. This one I went into it blind because I wanted to do a video on it, and I was excited to kind of see a movie without knowing much. Especially because sometimes we let the influence of public opinion sway our decision. So if you're watching this and you haven't seen the movie, shame on you. All right, cool. Well, thanks for watching. I will see you all in my next video. Catch you later. Goodbye.